Hi, you're watching The City Considers on Davis Community Television, which is a project of Davis Media Access. I'm Autumn Labbe-Renault. This show seeks to provide some insight into the people and the issues behind the city of Davis. And my guest today is Mayor Josh Chapman. Mayor Chapman came to the position with experience as owner and manager of Armadillo Music in downtown Davis, with a background in nonprofits and deep involvement with the Downtown Davis Business Association, the Downtown Plan Advisory Committee, and local schools. Welcome, Mayor Chapman. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Autumn. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I don't think we first met then. I think I met you through Armadillo, but I interviewed you when you were running for council in 2020 to represent the newly formed District 5, and you assumed the role of mayor in January of this year. Um, so that was a wild election. First of all, it was the pandemic. We were doing everything remotely, and both the city and the school district were transitioning to district elections. I guess my first question is, how has the district experience been? In other words, how do you balance the needs of representing your district, which is largely South Davis, versus representing the community and hearing from them on issues that affect all of us? So let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're definitely right. The campaigning in the height of a global pandemic was an experience, that's for sure, but one that I only knew. I hadn't run for office previous to that time, so that's what I knew when I did it. So it was tough. It was being in politics and wanting to be elected. You're looking to engage and interact with potential constituents, and doing it all through Zoom made it a little bit easier from a planning standpoint, but definitely getting to know folks and making that connection a little bit harder. So there are definitely some challenges with it, but fortunate enough to be elected to the city council as the first representative from District 5, as you mentioned, all of South Davis and Olive Drive as well. And I'm honored to take on that role. I think part of what we have stressed as a council right from the get-go was, even though we're elected by districts, we continue to serve the community as a whole. And I think that is something that we have always done. My colleagues and I have worked hard to not just say, hey, this is something that's popping up in District 2 or District 4, so we're hands off. There are definitely some things that come up that are specific to our districts that we are more engaged in than maybe if it's in a different district. But overall, our mindset as a council has been that we're elected by districts, but we govern for the city as a whole. And that's, we have different types of topics that come up that are specific. If there's a policy issue or something that's happening in our district with our subcommittees, deference is definitely given to the council member from that district. So in that way, we have kind of more engagement and involvement in those areas when it comes to the districts. But overall, we've tried, I think, done a really good job of governing as a whole. When you're elected as a district representative, we're not only, again, voting on things that come up in the district. So engagement,
Right.
phone calls, meetings with folks all across the city have been there. Pivoting to, as you mentioned, the honor of being sworn as the mayor in January of 2024 of this year. That role definitely has you run over the city as well, even more so than before. It's an honor to be the mayor of the city of Davis, and I look forward to the year ahead.
Well, speaking of the year ahead, we're going to get into some conversations about money here. The city has general fund revenue and expenditures of $84 million. It's a big budget. And I know things really changed for local government during the pandemic when we had all the money, the ARPA funds coming in, and that sort of helped out in a lot of different areas. Now that that type of funding has ended, what does the city's financial forecast look like in the year ahead?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question that you ask. I think one of the pieces that we got almost $18 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to the city of Davis. One of the pieces that we really did focus on in allocation of those funds over the past couple of years was to try and have those funds, one, have an immediate impact in the community, and two, not commit us to future obligations in the general fund. So we didn't
Right.
want to, for example, hire in 5 or 6 different staff members, or do work that was going to need sustainable a source of revenue once ARPA funds were not there. One of the pieces that we did do that was that put us forward was hire in Dana Bailey, who is our new director of social service and housing. The original amount of dollars allocated to bring her on board was from ARPA funds. But then we were able to take that time to identify the funds to make sure that that position not only was sustainable, but grew, which it has done in terms of the staff that she has there. So, in terms of the impact that ARPA funds had on our long term revenue, it didn't have as much of a big impact in terms of anticipated shortfalls coming to us because we brought on a bunch of new obligation. One of the things that it did help with was fulfilling some of the work that needed to be completed that was going to have to come out of general fund. For example, the Playfield Park renovation. Another one was the bike pump track in Central Park. Were dollars that were going to be allocated. The city hadn't really found that money yet in order to complete those projects. But through the ARPA funds, we were able to allocate out to those 2 projects, which then down the road move some of the dollars that we were trying to get to complete those 2 projects to be able to shift to other impacts we can have on the budget. As you mentioned, we have 84 million in general fund revenue. We have almost a $280 million budget in and of itself.
Mhm.
Outside, including the general fund. And one of the pieces that we have focused on is how do we step back and look at as our city continues to grow, as the cost of doing business increases, the cost of maintaining our roads, our bike paths, and just our general infrastructure, those costs are continuing to rise. And our revenue is staying basically the same. We haven't had any really new revenue streams come into the city in a handful of years. So as we look at what we're accustomed to in our quality of life and services that we provide, we want to make sure that we're still able to meet those needs of our community. And doing that is going to require some additional revenue in the coming years.
Right, so that's the there's a bond measure coming in November, and what's the overall goal, and what's being asked of for the community to approve in that process?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. We haven't. The council has talked about potential revenue measures for November. We have a subcommittee that's looking at those revenue measures, and we have has not come back to solidify or vote on which one we want to move forward with. A couple of different options there. Sales tax revenue measure. We have other jurisdictions around us who are looking to do the same thing in recognition of the financial environment that we're in as a region. So that would be, if that's what went forward, it'd be a sales tax increase in the city of Davis. It would be the maximum that we were allowed to do. We wouldn't be able to go back and do another sales tax revenue measure. And that would be our first new stream of revenue that would come forward to the city, like I said before, in a handful of years, and it's north of $10 million a year if that would be what the projections are, if that was to pass. So we're finalizing and looking to bring that back to council to get the next steps on that. But it's a much needed revenue measure. When we step back and look at again the growth that our city has seen, and then what we're looking at in terms of the cost of just doing business in general, particularly in labor. And how we're paying employees, compensating employees. We know and recognize that we need to step back and identify a new source of revenue. We're one of the few cities that we have what we do as a 20-year forecast. Most cities are very short term in a 4 to 5 year forecast range. Here in Davis, we do focus in on a 20-year range and project out what our needs are going to be so that we're not looking in the short term. And stepping back and identifying what these different revenue streams are, that the sales tax revenue, if that's the way that we go, would be able to solidify what that projection would look like as it goes out.
Right, and the city recently hired an economic development director. So what is her relationship to things like municipal bonds and versus working directly with the business community? Can you tell us a little bit about what her role will be?
Yeah, we were excited to bring on Katie Yancey. It was announced the end of last week that we filled the economic development director position. It's been a number of years since that position has been full. And one of the pieces that we really are looking at is to come up with an economic development strategic plan. It's something that we don't have right now. It's something that we really have been looking forward to bringing somebody on board to help lead that process. The council allocated $50,000 of ARPA funds a few months ago to put that aside, so the new development director, economic development director, when they came in, could hit the ground running and have some funds there to be able to kickstart that endeavor. So that's not only stepping back and looking at the commercial side of what we've been doing. So, it's also stepping back and looking at how we grow economically as a city in terms of our own budget, but also, connected directly to our downtown, what that looks like, coming up with a downtown economic development plan as well. I have not had the opportunity to meet Katie yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that. And we're super excited to have her come on board, because there's been a lot of things that have come up that we've put on the back burner until we brought this person on, because we want to make sure that we're strategic and we're efficient in the work that we do on this. It's a huge part of our city being sustainable in the years to come. So we're looking forward to getting together with Katie and getting the ball rolling.
Great. One of the things I think about when I think about the city is just the volume of infrastructure projects that a city has to deal with. And one of the things that I actually get calls for at DMA is people wanting clarification about two things. What's up with all the building happening down along Cowell and Childs and South Davis, right? And the second thing is people are really confused about what's going on with I-80, and in particular the causeway. And of course, that's been in the news a lot recently. What control, if any, does the city actually have over that issue? And do you also get a lot of questions about this from community members?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take the first part of your question to start. When you're discussing kind of the construction happening over on Research Park Drive over in South Davis, there are a number of projects that are occurring over there. We just had Celeste open up, which is on Childs, almost over to Mace Boulevard. That is a 225 unit housing project that is now open and leased out. So that was one that was coming up and people were seeing. We also have two right there on Research Park Drive that are two other. One is a mixed use and one is not. 1770 Research Park Drive is right across from the Starbucks. And that is 160 units of housing stacked on mixed use. And then a little bit further down, right across from Playfields Park, is Plaza 2555. And that's 200 housing units that are built. There's no mixed use there. There's no other office space, lab space. But that project is, if you've driven by there recently, is getting close. They're definitely vertical up to the 4 stories that they're doing and moving along with that. So that's what we're seeing there. And as I said, a little bit further down east of that, you see Celeste, which is the other building that went up for housing. So that's what's happening right there. There's a lot happening in South Davis related to housing. There's a lot of open land down there. So that's definitely filled some of the much needed housing need that we have here. Related to I-80, you mentioned the project, the highway project on I-80. I am the chair of the Yolo Transportation District Board of Directors. I serve on that with Supervisor Frericks. So from the Davis area, we're there together. The I-80 project started with an $86 million infra grant from the federal government that was brought on before my time on the Yolo Transportation District. And the idea was to come up with a way to better manage traffic on I-80. And there's been some conversations in our community around the best way to do that. Right now, the plan that's been moved forward is adding a 4th lane to the freeway, starting in Dixon and heading up to the I-80 and 50 split out past West Sacramento. It's about a 17-mile stretch. That project will go to the California Transit Commission in May for the final approval of funding. So that's what we're waiting on there. A lot of folks do think that the freeway is being widened right now. There's a lot of construction happening just east of Davis and over the causeway. And that, in fact, is what Caltrans is doing their safety improvements. It's not widening the freeway, and the
Mhm.
decision and the funding for the widening of I-80 will hinge on the vote by the California Transit Commission in mid-May.
Okay, good to know. We're unbelievably out of time. This always goes so fast. But before we go, is has there been an issue you've worked with as council member, or I realize you're not very far into your appointment as mayor, but has there been an issue that's been particularly gratifying? Did you ever have a moment saying, "Yeah, this is why I ran for office"?
Yeah, you want those to be, you want to have more than those than not, right? And in this community we do, and I'm very fortunate to work with an unbelievable set of four colleagues. And I think that there's just I wouldn't say that there's just this one defining moment that I've had in my coming into my fourth year on the city council and my first few months as mayor. I think there are a lot of projects that happen that are a culmination of hard work, not just by the elected officials for the city of Davis, but in collaboration with elected officials in Yolo County and our region, and also the amazing staff team that we have here at the city of Davis. One of the, I think, exciting pieces that we have coming up, we're embarking on our general plan update. It's been over 20 years since we've done that. So that's definitely something that we are looking forward to get going, and really want our community to be engaged and involved in. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I was excited and proud to see the South Davis Library, now known as Walnut Park Library, moving forward. We are hoping to, as this progresses, to break ground in November of 2024. For the much needed infrastructure project that happening over there right here in South Davis in District 5 for the Walnut Park Library. And I think the last thing I would say is just the culmination again of some of the plans that we've moved forward: the downtown housing plan or downtown development plan, adding over 100 units of housing in our downtown, our climate action and adaptation plan that we
Right.
finalized last year, extremely important, and getting our housing element certified. These are all real heavy, meaty issues that we've been dealing with that are big successes, that I think oftentimes fly under the radar. So very fortunate to get those plans moving and these pieces of the puzzle happening. And again, I'm very fortunate to be elected in the community that I love and work with some really great people.
Great. Well, thanks for your time and for giving us a little bit of insight into the job that you're managing as mayor of the city of Davis. Been speaking with Mayor Josh Chapman. I'm Autumn Labbe-Renault, and this has been the City Considers here from Davis Media Access.